CFA, worked in a lot of corporates, now having his own startup, which is really doing good.
I think Shofer stands for quality service. Shofer is like the best value for money. Mobility is a very basic need.
100%. How many cars you started with?
We started with 2 cars.
Okay, and now?
2 cars in November 2022.
Now you have progressed?
We have about 40 cars now.
That's
The airport transfer market alone in Bangalore should be anywhere between 1200 to 1800 crores a year.
Wow.
We have flat prices. These prices are fixed 24/7. So it's not fair to call them competition. They are much bigger players, all of them. We are pretty tiny and bootstrapped.
Do you miss your salary? Which comes in every month.
I really have no boss to blame. Right?
Don't want to say anything. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Gyani Param. If you're in Bangalore, one issue you would have faced quite a lot is booking a cab. Even if you get one, you'll be lucky to have a very good driver. There's a big problem in the city, Bangalore, or say anywhere else in India as well, right? There are only few players in the market who are catering to a big segment of people, right? Either you need a cab to go to the office, to parties, come back home from different events, or specifically if you're in Bangalore, going to the airport itself is a big task, and coming back is a bigger one as well, right? This problem I also face personally, but recently I found a solution towards this. Shofer, this is they term it as the gold standard of rides, and trust me, one thing I can definitely tell you, it is one as well, Vikas, right? So I have with me today Vikas. He's the founder or co-founder, you can say, of Shofer. So welcome to my channel, Vikas, and thanks a ton for your time, especially in person, and beautiful property, I must say as well, right? So thanks a lot for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me and taking out time.
No worries. So before we just dive into the Q&A, Vikas, right? Something about yourself, what you have done, who Vikas is.
Sure. Actually, I'm a career finance professional. Most of my life has been in different parts of the investments world or studying in the investments world. Did my economics degree and then CFA, and then I did a master's in economics and finance as well. And like so many folks in my time, I think there was a simple path of like getting, doing decent in studies, getting a job, maybe trying to move abroad. And throughout my career, I was at large institutions like Goldman Sachs, DE Shaw, Deutsche Bank, then Towers Watson. All of these are different players or institutions in the broader world of finance. And then, my last job before this was also in the world of investments at this fintech called Small Case.
Okay.
And so, what we are doing with Shofer, what I'm doing with Shofer is a whole different thing. But most of my life has been mostly in the world of investments. And in some ways, I think it's fair to say that stock markets is still a passion of mine.
And that's wonderful. And you took a 360 turn, I would say, from the world of finance coming to Shofer, right? Just for everyone, what Shofer is all about, what are its principles, core values, what problem statement are you trying to solve over here?
So I think Shofer stands for quality service. That's what we pride ourselves in. In terms of the problem, look, I mean, people in different cities, when it comes to mobility, is a very basic need.
100%.
Across cities, and especially part of urban life. Different cities have different challenges and different infrastructure. In a city like Bangalore, especially in the last 2 years, even as users, right, before Shofer started, like you could feel a lot of pain in terms of just getting a ride or the quality of the ride. My personal pet peeve is drivers talking on the phone, especially for like airport rides, because it's like a 1.5 hour journey.
Exactly.
Right? You don't want someone talking to on the phone throughout. I think Shofer, what we are trying to do with Shofer is to basically provide great service. And that's what, all aspects of the company keeps that in mind. And we are trying to basically, on one hand, keep drivers happy and improve their lives, so that they, in turn, when they are engaging with our guests, because they are the face of the company, they also treat them in a manner that, we would like to be treated. And that's what hopefully we are able to achieve by, keeping a great priority on the service.
One thing you spoke about drivers, right, to keep them happy, because technically they are your face in front of the customers. One good thing I want to call out for everyone, right? I saw your LinkedIn post regarding how you're supporting their children's education. Something on about that, if you want to touch base about.
Sure. I mean, so we've partnered with an organization called Let's Teach One, which is actually run by a few family members of mine. They've been doing this since 2007, where they've, the whole goal, or the way Let's Teach One started, was essentially that, no kid has to be pulled out of school because their parents now cannot afford to
100%.
send them.
Yeah.
And that was how Let's Teach One started. And over the years it's grown a fair amount. And then in a city like Bangalore, education is expensive.
Very
And if
expensive.
you're on a monthly salary of, let's say, 30,000,
Mhm.
it's a burden.
Yeah.
Right. So when we were doing, when basically I was telling my family that, this is an issue, can we do something about it? We did have scope of doing a certain amount, and then I realized that, look, this is something we as a company themselves
Mhm.
should be encouraging, and trying to see if this is something that we can afford to do
Yep.
as a company.
Mhm.
Right. And that was essentially the start of this collaboration or this initiative.
Okay.
And where, if a driver has kids going to school, we will give up to 15,000 rupees directly to the school, that will be adjusted towards their tuition fees or school fees.
Coming back to Shofer again, right? How did you decide to found this amazing company? Do you have a co-founder as well?
Yes. The origins of Shofer is actually, one of my friends wanted to buy an SUV,
Mhm.
and we were test driving a bunch of them.
Okay.
And we test drove the Tata Nexon EV, and it was a beautiful experience. I had
Yeah.
been driving for more years of my life
Mhm.
than not, and even after like 20 years of driving, when I turned on that car, I didn't realize that the car had switched on.
100%. Yeah.
And it was such a smooth, noiseless experience.
Mhm.
So it definitely, I had known of EVs but not really experienced one, and that experience was quite mind-blowing. But then he's from he's a Marwadi, I'm also from Rajasthan. Came back, and there was a 3 lakh delta between the petrol diesel variant
Yeah.
and the EV variant.
Yeah.
And the simple question was, does it make sense for him to buy?
Mhm.
And he did about 1,000 kilometers a month.
Mhm.
For
Wow.
him to break even on that 3 lakh rupees delta, it would have taken him 5-6 years.
Okay.
But the next obvious question was, well, if had he been driving for just 3,000 kilometers, though, that whole math would have made sense.
Mhm.
And then the thing was that, look, commercial operators should be doing at least 300 kilometers a day.
Mhm.
If you run the car for 9,000 kilometers a month,
Okay.
then suddenly this whole math makes a lot more sense, and you can actually make money.
Okay.
And that was the origins, let's say, of us going down this rabbit hole, trying to understand, well, is this true? Does this math make sense?
Mhm.
And then if this math does make sense, why is no one else doing it?
Okay.
We figured out, did research who all are doing it, how they are doing it, what issues they are facing, and that's pretty much how Shoffr started.
How many cars you started with?
We started with 2 cars.
Okay. And now?
2 cars in November 2022.
That was last year.
That was
now
last
you
year.
have progressed to?
We have about 40 cars now.
That's simply amazing, I would say. Right? That's a good growth. I saw a lot of feedbacks you get
Right.
on LinkedIn, Twitter. Everywhere I've seen positive things coming out. How does that make an impact in your day-to-day operations? Do you take those, when you take those feedbacks, you look at that? How do you try to better yourself with that as well?
So, I mean, it's great to see positive feedback, right? It
Yeah.
always is great. Even when we started out, in fact, it was even more valuable then, because it does give you some validation that, look, these people are going and talking about it, even though we haven't asked them to do so.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
It's pure delight that they have, and they want to share it. So it really does give us a lot of boost. And even negative feedback. So like instantly whenever a feedback comes, the whole team is alerted about that.
Okay.
And if it's great, it's great. If it's not good, that's something that we take immediate action on. Like, I speak to the guest, try and understand what happened.
Yeah.
Try and speak to the driver and try and see what happened, what went wrong, whose fault it was, and what we can do to fix it. Right? Because no matter how many processes we set, and we do set, and and how the business expands, more people come, it's obviously important. But no matter how much training you give a driver and tell them about these things, the real feedback can only come from the experience when someone is in the car with that driver.
Yeah.
And there is no eyes that we can have at that point in time
Exactly.
to monitor what is happening or not. So we rely a lot on feedbacks. And thankfully, we've grown and been able to set processes, because guests have been kind enough to give the feedback, take out the time, and tell us exactly where we screwed up or what we can do better.
Few things I want to call out: your drivers are pretty polite. They make sure that, especially when you're with your family, you want that extra level of comfort. You pointed out a very good thing. You don't want the driver to speak throughout that 1.5 hour journey to your home from the airport. Especially, it's a pain. Luckily, your drivers do not do that as well. Cars are pretty swanky. I personally like the Bisleri which is kept, the Polo and the Arm candy as well, like the mango candy. Boot space is pretty good.
Right.
Even when I posted about Shofer on my page on LinkedIn, right? Somebody asked me about the boot space. I was like, you can fit in your home as well in this, so that's pretty cool. What's your team size, Vikas, at the moment?
It's a small team.
Mhm.
We have 5 people in operations.
Okay.
We have about 78, 75 odd drivers right now.
Mhm.
And in the HQ team, so as to say, there's like one engineer,
Mhm.
one person in founder's office,
Yeah.
and 2 of us.
Okay.
So it's a pretty lean team
Mhm.
that we have today.
In terms of how you are expanding, like from 2 to 40 cars now, right?
Yeah.
What's your future vision at this point of time? If you say, for example, like 2 or 3 years down the line, where Shofer wants to be?
Mobility is a huge market
Mhm.
across cities in India.
Yeah.
Interestingly, a large part of the market seems to be in the top 7 cities.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there is plenty of opportunity for us to kind of move beyond. But I think there are segments of mobility that are more problematic, segments that are more solved.
Mhm.
For us, it makes sense to kind of really solve pain points of users,
Mhm.
as opposed to like do things where to some extent it's already solved and it's not
Mhm.
as painful.
Yeah.
So that is one guiding principle we have as we grow. Obviously, it makes sense for us to go deep in Bangalore,
Mhm. Yeah.
because we've spent a lot of time and effort in building our knowledge base here,
Mhm.
building a brand and reputation here. So and this market itself is quite huge.
It's massive. Yeah.
For example, the airport transfer market alone in
Mhm.
Bangalore should be anywhere between 1,200 to 1,800 crores a year.
Wow.
And this is before T2 opened,
Mhm. Yeah.
based on numbers of 2022,
Mhm.
flight numbers of
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah.
So this is a huge market just in Bangalore itself.
Mhm.
Airport markets and mobility segments in top 7 cities
Mhm.
is even far, far bigger,
Mhm.
right? So I think we are mindful and to not spread out too much too quickly.
Okay. Yeah.
It makes sense for us to, whenever we move to other cities or other segments,
Mhm.
to be sure of first that we are solving a pain point that users feel and face,
Yeah.
as well as have a good understanding of the dynamics of that city, right?
Mhm.
Because the problem, let's say, with ride hailing in Bombay is very different than the problems of the same ride hailing service in Bangalore.
Mhm.
And that's because the people of these cities and the drivers, ultimately, they are people only.
Yeah. Yeah.
The users and the drivers, and hence the whole city and the people are
Mhm.
different,
Exactly.
right? The infrastructure alternatives that a city provides are different.
Mhm.
So these things matter a lot. I think it's fair to say that what we would like to have after 2-3 years also
Mhm.
is the same service quality and standards,
Mhm.
irrespective of whichever cities we are operating in.
Yeah.
Like,
There was one comment I saw. I don't remember whether it was on LinkedIn or Twitter, right? Somebody wrote that there's recently a cab aggregator with EV. They started as well, right? When they were small, they were able to provide that quality service,
Sure.
but when they expanded again, they are in line with the other Olas and the Ubers,
Right.
which are there, right? Do you think, or are you planning towards this side as well, that when you expand, you will be able to maintain the same level of, say, quality delivery? What you're doing?
Yes, I believe so. Because um, how one scales is a function of many things,
Mhm.
including how you started to begin with, the things that you as a business or anyone as a business has always prioritized, and then even when they scale, what the business chooses to focus on,
Mhm.
right? Of course, see, this is an operations heavy business,
Exactly.
so screw ups are inevitable, if I
Mhm.
may say so.
Yeah.
But I think most people are quite understanding,
Mhm.
if you're honest and transparent and tell them that, look, this is what exactly happened and we're sorry about that,
Mhm.
right? And do something to kind of earn their trust back.
Mhm.
And that can only come from a business having that kind of an intent.
Mhm.
We have that intent, and we've had that from day one, because we see this as a mobility is again a very basic need,
Mhm.
right? My job or Shofer, what we are trying to do is to build that relation with our users.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, one trip is not what we are after,
Mhm.
right? Like, we would like you, Shofer, to be like anyone's default go-to for all their mobility needs, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever mobility needs that we can serve.
Yeah.
And that stems from actually wanting to have a genuine relation with
Mhm.
our users and
Yeah.
our guests, right? And that is something that I think even as we scale, we'll be able to maintain, because it really comes from how operationally sound and profitable your business is, what you believe is the key driver of that business.
Yeah.
So let's say Taj Hotels is a very high scale business.
Yeah.
But it's not like their service quality has deteriorated over time because they have scaled.
Yeah.
They started out with one hotel. Today they have a bunch of them
Yeah.
around the whole world and country, right? But they have been able to maintain their service quality standards because they really focus on them a lot. That is the core of their business, and this in turn is the core of our business. And for me personally, and even for Kisle, who's my co-founder, this service quality is the true differentiator that we believe that we can offer.
Okay. No, 100%. Your quality service compared to the price we pay for it, it's amazing. You said you mentioned that the market size is pretty big. So is the competition. How do you see your competition growing and yourself? What is your strategy around it? Do you monitor them as well?
Monitor, no, but we get updates. And what I realize is now increasingly, as more and more people know that we are building Shofer, more and more people actually reach out to us with information about anything that happens in the industry, right? So we are aware, but firstly, it's not fair to call them competition. They are much bigger players, all of them. We are pretty tiny and bootstrapped. But I think the market is quite big. For the longest time, there had been a duopoly in the ride-hailing business. Now there are new entrants of all sizes, and a bunch of EV-specific, EV-only fleets that have come up across cities in India. Some are big, some are small, some are known, some less so. But it's fair to say that because of EVs, this space is getting interesting again. I come back to that the market is actually quite big.
Okay, so
there is enough space for everyone for a while at least. Like all markets, inevitably, I'm sure that there wouldn't be as many organized players. That there will be some consolidation that happens there. But even when there weren't these many organized players, the unorganized market was still pretty big, and that continues to remain so, right? So I feel like it's going to be like an interesting next 3, 4, 5 years for the whole mobility space, because everyone seems to be doing everything, and a bunch of different things are happening from existing players as well as new ones, right? So like, for example, recently only Rapido started entering the cab market in Bangalore, right? So there's a new player in that sense.
Do you get worried when somebody new comes in, or you just chill about that?
Not really. See, business models are very different, firstly, right? Which in turn means that the operations also are very different. So it obviously, see, we are quite aware of who is doing what. In fact, I feel the other EV aggregator that you had kind of alluded to, they launched a day or 2 days before we launched. So that was something that was like, oh damn, like this is happening. We kind of knew it was going to happen. We were aware of it, but just the timing was like, damn. But we realized that, look, this is a big enough market. If we are able to do what we think is the right way of doing this business, we should be able to kind of do a good job. And I think in the past 1 year, that is probably the most joyful thing about the whole thing, that we had this thesis, and this thesis is playing out. Right? And the biggest validation actually is the love from guests. It's nothing else. The fact that so many people know about Shofer, use Shofer, without us actually going out and giving them any discount or referral or doing any advertising.
I do search for the referral code just flying through the website, but I haven't been able to. But works out good as well. I was like, even if you have to pay extra for that peace of mind for that journey, I don't honestly mind. But entire fleet is electric.
Yes.
Do you feel we have the right infrastructure available right now? Just say Bangalore at the moment, or you see there's still a lot to be done in that particular aspect? You need to charge your car somewhere, right?
Correct. No, I mean, I think it's definitely one of the better cities. We don't face any issues we don't face much issues. Let's put it like that, right? There are a lot of charge point operators as well as like established players who've entered this business, who are solving for this, right? So whatever it was when we started a year back, just in 1 year, a lot has changed.
Okay.
A lot, many more charging stations have opened across the whole city. So it's not like it's just concentrated in one area, but throughout the whole city, a bunch of charging infrastructure has been built.
Okay.
So purely from our business perspective, we don't face any issues. Obviously, there's a bunch of work to be done, but I think there is a lot of attention and focus on that by the players in that space.
So you don't think that will be much of a problem in the coming years? In fact, it will be better.
Yes, it should be.
Because why I wanted to ask you this, even I have a petrol car right now, right? But
Okay.
When I sat in your car, a couple of other EVs, I drove as well. It's a completely different ball game, right? Just want to take a cue from your founder's mindset, right? I know you think differently compared to what people are doing in their jobs. You worked in corporates. Now you're working for a startup. I can call this as a startup, or you have evolved.
I feel any new business is a startup.
It's a startup, right? So from corporate to a startup now, how your mindset has changed completely? Do you miss your salaries, which comes in every month?
Yeah, I do. I mean, but there is a trade-off there, and hopefully this missing of salary is not going to be like a permanent thing. It's something that as the business grows and we do even better, that will be taken care of. But I think the biggest change is actually in the sense of ownership, right? That you have towards all aspects of the work, which either by design or by just how the corporate world is less so possible in that. Yep. Right? Even if someone wants to take ownership and go do much, a lot of times just the structures don't allow that. And there are many more hoops to go through, and different things in place. That's why I feel startups end up doing things that could have easily been done by larger companies that were already in that space. Yep. Right? It's a small case actually was my first startup experience. Okay. And it was beautiful in that sense, right? A lot of my learnings came from my 2.5 year stint there, and that was across all domains. Learned so much about product, about content, about just what is classified as growth in the startup world, and all the things around that. It's fair to say I learned more about these things because investments and that side was something that I already had a lot of exposure and experience in, the market side of it. But I think startups do give you that flexibility and that sense of ownership. A lot of times it's just by sheer constraints that are there. There's just not that many people, but there's so much work to be done, and that just creates an environment where you have a lot more ownership. Obviously, founding a business is kind of like that on 10x, right? Because there's I really have no boss to blame. Right?
Don't want to say anything.
It's definitely a great experience.
It's like you see yourself in the mirror and start shouting. You come across those difficult situations every day, right? So
it's true, and it's there, but that is the nature of that job. Right? It has its flip sides and upsides, but I think it's very when you don't have anyone else to put blame on to a great extent. I think you're forced to kind of be really very real and honest with yourself, right? That look, is this because it's ultimately a great to a great extent, it's both the, let's say, the founders, whoever it's a joint decision, or the founding team or the founders have to decide on that prioritization, what to take, what not to take, which call is better, which call is less important. It's a prioritization of resources, and there are only two resources, which is money and time, or capital and time. And you have to be really honest and real about what are the things that that you are more confident about, and be very open about things that you are less confident about, or less sure of, or you don't know much about, or which is a problem that needs to be fixed.
Do you have those days when you feel that job was better, why I'm over here? Do you have those low points? How do you cope up with that?
No, not that kind of a low point for sure, that I wish I was in a job.
So this is much better, right?
I would say so, for sure.
Just on this particular part, right? I know there are so many people, right, who are working in either corporates, graduating from college, they want to start their own business. Shark Tank has played a big role as well,
Okay.
right? And in India, that how people are having that mindset. What would be your tips or suggestions to the new founders or people who are already there in the startup world? What is that mantra for success if they want?
I'm not sure I'm the best person to give advice.
You've done well.
I'm fairly new to this whole, running a business thing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot to achieve. We've just basically started out. It's just been a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how qualified I am to give advice to people on businesses and how to build a business
Mm-hmm.
just yet. I think what helped me is to have skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
That really, helped me understand that, okay, how much do I want to be behind this idea, right? And for me, at least personally, being all in really helps in terms of saying that, look, this is something that I have to make work,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whatever it takes to make it work. I think that whenever that happens, whether that's by design or by some unfortunate event
Mm-hmm.
or because of some struggle, but I think that really gives that push in how to make anything work. Um, it's I mean I'm not sure if it's fair to say that do something about that you're passionate about, because
Mm-hmm.
like say
Yep.
for example, like my business it's not like I ever thought about running an EV fleet
Yep.
business, right, or like a taxi service.
Yep.
It was mostly around markets or personal finance and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, and it's something that I'm still passionate about. But it's very, very accurate to say that, like, even from day one, I've been super passionate about Shofer and how it is built, how people talk about it, what kind of values that Shofer represents.
Yeah.
Even though I never really was passionate about building a taxi service. So one thing is that if anyone is buying into an idea and is fully behind it, that passion inevitably follows, because that becomes your focus and something that you think about a lot. Um, Beyond that, I really have no advice. I feel I come from a mindset that it's great if the math works.
Yep. Yep.
I feel like there are many different ways to build a business and get to a final
Mm-hmm.
point. So there's no one right way.
Yeah.
But I have personally, even as an investor, even as someone whose job was to be looking at, let's say, companies and making equity research reports and doing recommendations and stuff like that. I always have believed that that a business should have a clear path to profitability, or to make sure that cash flows are being managed properly.
Yep.
Because as a business, what you're trying to do is essentially create something from nothing, and that is only sustainable if the business is built and does business in a certain way.
That's pretty interesting, Vikas, right? And good point of view, good honest opinion, I would say, right? It's not like some gyan you have given. That's something I really like. One last thing I want to really bring out in front of everyone. Shofer is one of the limited operators who are pet friendly as well.
That's correct.
There are so many pet parents in Bangalore, who I know. I have friends who have some beautiful pets, right? In where I live, I can see hundreds of pet parents as well, right? One issue they were facing in terms of commute, not every cab aggregator or even the cab people, right, they're not comfortable having them. But how did you think of being a pet friendly cab operator as well?
I mean, I have faced it myself. So I used to have 2 cats.
Okay.
It's a whole different story, but we faced it ourselves at a different point in time. And I have friends who still have pets, and a lot of time they face this issue of they did get a ride, but then the driver was not willing to do it.
Yeah.
And that is a fair thing, right? Like if you don't want that, or
Fair
you
enough.
have inhibitions, or let's say even if you're scared or you don't want the car to get dirty, that's fair. That's like if it's your car, it's your outlook. But the flip side is that this was a problem and a pain point, and few of our guests had actually reached out to say that, look, we have to drop off our pet at the boarding before I take a flight. Would that be possible? And like, yeah, why not? I mean, we should be able to do it. So we checked with drivers. Not all drivers are actually comfortable having a dog loose in the car or a cat, but we did it because we understood, we felt the pain. I have felt the pain
Mhm.
personally
Yeah.
before, and then when a guest asked, we were like, yeah, this makes sense. So we did it again, a few trial runs, and then at some point when we had enough drivers, or like most, we'd spoken to most of our drivers and they were comfortable with it, we can do this.
Mhm.
So it was just to give our users and guests who had pets
Yep.
that extra peace of mind that, look, you can just book it. Everything else that comes with Shofer is going to be there. Like, it's not like we'll cancel.
Mhm.
The driver's still going to be polite and all of that. It's just
Yep.
that this additional hassle that you otherwise had, now that will also be taken care of.
All right. Last golden question I have, right, which I'm sure many people would be wanting to know. You have some good fancy fleet of cars,
Mhm.
right? You have some good trained, well-mannered, polite drivers who actually help out quite a lot, pet-friendly as well. How is your pricing structure at the moment? I can tell my experience later on as well,
Okay.
but how have you structured your prices for Bangalore at the moment?
We have flat prices from specific areas in Bangalore. So we
Mhm.
have about 3 or 4 different tiers of pricing,
Mhm.
basis on which how far a particular area is from the airport.
Mhm.
For rentals, it's a flat pricing across. But when it comes to airport transfers, there are 4 or 5 different tiers of pricing
Mhm.
that are very distance based, and these prices are fixed 24/7. So
Okay.
it's not like if you're taking a ride at 2 in the night, it will be more expensive, and it will be cheaper at like 2 in the afternoon. It's none of that. It's flat pricing, 24, the same price from the same place, 24/7.
And they do not change during the ride as well, right?
They don't change
Yeah.
during the ride as well.
Like how sometimes I've experienced, I book a cab via some app and prices do differ.
Right.
So that's
Like
not
they
the
show
case.
you 800, but it's actually 880 by the time you end it.
Somehow the maths never really works
Right.
out with those apps. And my personal experience has been a couple of times when I initially booked your cab, right? That was say 9 or 10 months before this. I actually got it cheaper than Ola and Uber, and
Right.
this is not something I'm making it up. I can share you the screenshot. I paid about 1,200 to my place from
Okay.
airport to Whitefield Varthur. Then yeah, Ola was, and that was around 1 a.m. I took the cab.
Okay.
My family was there. Ola was charging about 14. Uber was going berserk at that time
Right.
because of the demand. And so well done, Vikas, right?
Thank you.
I would say it's very, why I wanted to meet you as well, to take some inspiration as to, I know you have worked in corporates, but to take a shift over to a startup, that takes a lot of guts, both financially and mentally as well. That's why I asked you the salary question. Do you miss it or not? But I got the answer. But thanks a lot for your time today. It's really amazing what you have been doing. Any closing thoughts from your side, and why people should use Shofer?
Not really. I mean, why people should use it? See, I'm actually personally a fairly cost conscious person.
Yeah.
So I would. It's fair to say that there are cheaper alternatives that are out there, even with the pricing structure we have, which is not that high.
Yep.
But I think where what Shofer is like the best value for money. It's not the cheapest, but it's the best value for money service that anyone in Bangalore can find today. We know of a bunch of guests who may not book for it themselves when they travel alone, because they will take a cheaper ride, and they don't care what the service quality is like or not, and that's totally fair. But when it comes to like booking a ride for their wives or parents, they will come to Shofer and book that,
100%.
right? And that's also great. Like there, as I said, there are different segments of the market. There are all kinds of people. And what we are trying to build is essentially the best value for money service, which has a certain service quality standards, right? And some of it does come at a cost, but it's something that I feel to a great large extent of the audience is something that is something that they've been paying for different service providers
100%.
anyways at different times,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's just that here we can offer a lot better quality.
Yeah, peace of mind is something I really get when I take Shofer. One thing I would strongly recommend: try it once, and trust me, you will not go back to others again. So thanks a lot, Vikas, right, for joining us today. This was Vikas, a CFA, worked in a lot of corporates, now having his own startup, which is really doing good. I wanted to understand his business model, but really great thoughts as well, good insights, online plus the offline chat, what we had as well, Vikas, right? So thanks a lot, and then yeah, all wish you the best for
Thank
your
you so
future
much
as well.
for doing this, Param. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Do watch the video, share it with your friends as well, and definitely Shofer is something you need to try it once. As I did mention, do subscribe to my channel as well. It will help me in bringing out more such videos. I will bring you more such startups in the coming future as well. That's what I've recently decided. So look out for that content as well. Thanks for joining in today. Thanks a lot. Bye. Take care.